Hello, 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 everyone. It's Christina George back with Paranormal Connections radio show. Have you missed me? So, everybody knows I was thinking 2024 was going to be a better year and that my health would be better, things would be better. And for everybody that's, follows me, everybody will know that it did not start out that way. Christmas Day, I got sick. I ended up in the hospital with a double kidney infection, and the infection had gone into my bloodstream. So I spent a week in the hospital until New Year's, and I've just been struggling ever since. Uh, so got some uh, new updates that we're going to be doing. Next week, I have a huge special guest and announcement. Uh, but just for everybody for tonight, I just want to let everybody know moving forward, um, Paranormal Connections and Top Secret News are going to merge into one. And I'm going to go back to just having paranormal connections. Now, for all of my UFO followers, Bigfoot, all that, stay with me because I tried this 15 years ago and it didn't work out so well. I think everybody is ready now that we can cover all these different topics and show the connections that they have between all of them. So if everybody that thinks that there's no connection between the fields, keep a watch on the show because I think got a lot of very interesting guests that are going to definitely prove that theory wrong. So I'm looking forward to the journey with you guys. It will stay Sunday nights at 6 p.m. I'm sorry, 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, 7 Central Time, and 8 Eastern Time. Oh, hey, Lynn. No, you are not late. I see people are just popping in. So go ahead and get ready. I have a great guest tonight. And guys know I absolutely love to have new people on the show. So this is somebody I have not had on before. And it's going to be Greg Bakum. And Greg is actually a seasoned paranormal investigator. He's an intuitive and an ITC specialist, which we're definitely going to get into tonight because you guys know I love that talk. And he's got like 15 years of experience, so you should have a lot to be able to share. His favorite method of communicating with spirits is through a spirit box, also known as the ghost box. He's also passionate about bridging the gap between the metaphysical and the paranormal by bringing together mediums and paranormal investigators to work together to help each other validate communication, share information, and promote respectful investigations. Obviously, you can see why he was a top choice to be on a guest tonight. So, with that being said, let me go ahead and bring on my guest. Hey, everybody. Hey,
Hi there.
Greg. Welcome to
Hi
the
there.
show. Thanks so much.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, absolutely. We were talking a little bit before the show, about spirit boxes, ITC, all of that kind of stuff, and my feelings on it. And I've always been very open about that. But I want to, get on that topic, but before we start on that, let's talk a little bit of what got you into the field. Like what was your first experience that really kind of like triggered everything?
I think really for me it all goes back to the spirit box. It all goes back to ITC because for I remember years and years and years ago I was watching some paranormal show. Wasn't when this blast of paranormal stuff started with Ghost Hunters. It was just a little before that where there's some very fringe sort of shows, and they had this kind of, dare I say, rotund investigator that they put in a coffin and they buried him alive with a camera in the coffin. And when they're putting the dirt on this, imagine this, the coffin collapses, it breaks through, he's suffocating down there, they're all freaking out, they don't know what to do. And I thought, gosh, this is dumb, this is really stupid. I was like, well, this is why I'm not into this stuff. And then a few years later I was watching something else, and it was a show that I think a lot of people don't think too highly of at all these days, even though it's Zach, and he's still, number one, really. Unfortunately, I shouldn't say unfortunately. Your mileage may vary. That's your own opinion. I shouldn't be putting my own opinion out there about the show.
Oh, well, we'll just agree on this.
Yeah,
It
I
will
mean,
be unfortunately. We agree. My guests know very clear how I feel about Zach. I've had personal experiences with Zach and his investigating,
mhm,
and so I exposed him basically for many years, and then ended up
right.
having to be on an episode of his show. So yeah, you don't have to worry about that. We're in agreement there.
Well, and so we were, I mean, back then, I mean, there wasn't a whole lot of choices of different shows and stuff. So I was watching and I was intrigued. I mean, those early episodes, there's some stuff that I found very intriguing about, but he was
Yes,
using the spirit box. And it was before it was like, now you have like the mass produced PSP 7, you have a lot of stuff that was more of a shack hack, and they actually
right.
called it as such. And I thought to myself, if that really works, I really would like to try that out. So I had a friend. I worked in a building that now it doesn't seem that old compared to some of the places I've been, but worked in a building in downtown Minneapolis that was built in 1916, and we had a creepy basement. Once again, that's not a creepy basement based on what been seeing around the world. But a friend of mine who I worked with, he was also into it. I said, he worked remotely in Texas, and he would come in every once in a while. I said, next time you come in, I'm going to have a spirit box, and I'm going to see if we can get anything. And I recorded it all and everything. And he came in. I went to that big paranormal store called Amazon, and I picked up my first PSP 7, and we went down to the creepy basement. I have no idea what I'm doing. He has no idea what he's doing. I'll tell you how much I didn't know what I was doing. I took the camera downstairs. We were in pitch black, and I had, first of all, it wasn't even a night vision camera. There was no lights whatsoever. I recorded just black for hours. I mean, that's how little I knew about anything. I barely knew my name, if you get my drift. And
Right.
I turn on the spirit box, and I'm like, and we're down there. I don't even have an external speaker on it, which you have to have really for
Right.
those devices. Just a little one in there. I'm like, can we get a name, please? Within seconds, it was Nate. The name Nate came through, and I'm like, can we have a last name? And Lund came through. We asked for a couple other questions, and the responses were coming through very quickly. And it was like we were looking at each other. What's happening here? We went upstairs where the offices of the advertising agency I was working for upstairs, and I have a recording. I have all this recorded, and I said, my name is Greg. This is Jeff. Could you say Greg? Can you say Jeff? And also you just get uh, Greg, Jeff just comes right through very clearly. And I fell in love. I just fell in love with this because it that was suddenly I felt like I was home. Like this is what I needed to do. And so I just kept with it. I just kept with it forever. That was kind of my thing going forward. And what I had found over the years was it for me personally, and I think for more people than they want to realize, I use mediumship to bring through the spirits I want to talk to. Like I can I
I love
and I
that.
have some of the evidence that I believe is me saying this is the person I want to talk to, and I pull them in. It doesn't mean that they're always going to talk. And so
Right.
I used to do this thing Sunday nights called Ghost Box Live, which I really would like to do again because it was basically a mediumship gallery, but I was using Spirit Box. So I'd say, put in the comments who you want me to reach out to, and you get a lot of people, and then I would try to get them on. I don't know what these people sound like. I don't know what Aunt Betty sounds like, but they do, and you suddenly get in the comments, oh my God, that's her voice. And that's
Right.
that's when the trajectory for me changed from going to locations and investigating to actually helping people with their spirit communication and trying to also help people who have lost extreme loved ones, to let them know that, because I'm sure you get this too, that's the first question you get, are they okay? So
Right. 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 And, I think that that just kind of adds on to it because I know, many readings that I've done. I specifically, when I connect, I will ask that spirit to please give me very specific information that only the person receiving it is going to understand, right? Because
Yeah.
again, there's nothing worse than I hate is somebody coming to a reading and saying, I'm sensing like a grandmother figure.
Right. Right.
Okay,
Yeah. Is
how
that
many
does
people don't
did
have
anyone ever
grandmothers?
have a dad? You know, I
Right,
mean,
right. And then if it's not the grandmother, well, oh, maybe an aunt. Did that? What? Did gray hair? And it just irks me. But if you come across with information that again only that person is going to know, and it can be all kinds of things.
yeah.
Usually, I find that it's usually conversations that the client will have to themselves or to their loved one
Yeah.
before they have the reading seems to be the thing. And they'll say, if you're really gonna, she really connects with you, make sure to tell me this or that. And so again, when you're able to give that kind of very detailed information, there's no way that, you could find that out, know that, guess it. You'd have to be really, really good and to be accurate all the time.
Yeah.
But I think this kind of takes it even to the next level because, like you said, you can hear differences in voices
Yeah.
and tones, or phrases that are being said that on top of what information you might be able to give them, there's no denying it for them there. So I could definitely see where that could work together well with a reading. I think what put me off so far back was Steve Huff. I don't know how you feel about,
I first I thought you said Steva. It's like, what's Steva? No, I
I
know
don't know,
Steve
yeah.
Huff. Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah. Yeah.
again, there's always somebody or something that tarnishes our field, right?
Yep.
You'll get it's like psychics, right? When I first got into the field, we were considered a joke that it didn't exist. Like if you used or had a psychic on your paranormal team, you were kind of blacklisted to people. They're like, oh wow, you're
Yeah.
using a psychic.
Yeah.
Then it went on TV.
Hmm.
Then, like overnight, everybody changed their name to psychic medium so and so. Now
Yeah.
everybody had abilities. Then everybody started going out there trying to give readings because now the lights switched on. Now everybody wants proof that you actually have some abilities. So now everybody's giving these wacky readings, general readings, like I just said, like, oh, it's a grandmother figure, not getting anything right, really bad. And then, of course, it puts it down, we kind of slide back down because, again, we were a little bit, acknowledged like, okay, as soon as it went on TV, oh, using a psychic to get information that can be validated, oh, is a great thing. So now everybody changed their mind. Then we started getting the spirit boxes. And again, Steve and I actually have uh, some personal issues that came about when he
Hmm.
first created his first spirit box. Let's just put it
Hmm.
that way, because he stole the idea. We'll put it
Hmm.
out like that. So I went out and was, exposing him, and so he came out with it, and it immediately was a hit.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody was getting these things, and again, what he was doing, I felt like really put the technology was interesting. But I also then found out that a lot of the sound banks and things, when you build these, can be programmed. And they can be programmed with certain words and phrases, things like that. So not many people knew the technology back then or knew how to do it.
Hmm.
But as time went on, people started figuring it out. And it became a very disrespectful thing because every time somebody died, Steve would claim that,
Yeah.
he connected
Within
with them,
hours.
the next day.
Yeah.
Um, so again, I think that although it piqued everybody's interest, it also was like, should we be using it?
Hmm. Hmm. I mean, I think the thing. I mean, Steve. Steve's something else. And the thing that I don't use a whole lot of, and I don't say it because I think that people are pre-programming. I really don't know, but there's so much. Like I'm using the radios that
Mhm.
you aren't pre-pro. That you really can't do that with the radios. It
Right.
just it
So you're
and the
using
app.
kind of the most like the earliest versions before like they all became a all in one with
Yeah.
everything. Okay.
Yeah, no, like I mean, like the mass produced one, the PSP 7, I've been using, and if you talk to ITC specialists, they'll be like, "Oh, no, 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 you got to use these, you got to use all these big ones." And there's stuff that people are putting out there that they're making that are really good, but I get the results I want, and people can try whatever they want to make it work, but the apps themselves, I just haven't. I haven't used it. And when you're basing something off of echo, I think it's easy for people to forget that it's also echo based. So if they hear, like someone said, they just said like I'm looking for Prince, and in using something that uses an echo to create the responses, and you hear Prince, and it's your voice, and they're like, oh my God, he responded. And it's like, no, he didn't actually. That's just the echo. That's what creates the energy to be able to, in theory, get you a response that you're looking for. But I think that sometimes people who are not armed with the knowledge, they're going to, and I don't even think it's armed with the knowledge. As you know, people are going to hear what they want to hear anyway.
Yes. Yeah.
And that's where you have to be very diligent. And don't get me wrong, I've had a lot of stuff come through the box that I was adamant was one thing. You go back and you listen to recording, you're like, ooh, no, that didn't actually happen at all. That
Right.
I had one where Easter, I think it's coming up in 2 years ago, Easter, I reached out. I just was, I'm not overly religious, but I thought during my ghost box sessions, I'm gonna see if I can reach out to Mother Mary. And I have this remembrance of me asking Mother Mary, "Are you here?" And I hear this woman's voice come through the spirit box and says, "I'm here." And that's a memory that's so beautiful and so wonderful. And then we teach a class on paranormal, and I went back and I thought, that'd be a fun clip to pull and play for people. So I went back to that episode, I pulled it, and I said, Mother Mary, are you here? And it's about 30 seconds to 40 seconds, and then a man says, I'm here. It's not how I remember it, but that
Mm.
goes to show you have to record, you have to review, because it's often not the way that we remember it in the moment. Even if when we're like, I remember everything, I'm really good at it, sure, but that's just how things work. That's how the human brain operates.
Right. That's your perception,
Yeah.
of what's going on. I mean, again, everybody knows because of my abilities, I don't use all the techie stuff, but like my team and everybody that I investigate with, they love it. So, I'm very fascinated with all of this. But the one thing that we started doing is that whenever we were, even way back when we started just doing EVPs, way before the
Hmm.
spirit boxes and stuff, we would, you know, get all of our recordings and we would go back and we would go over it. And if we all pretty much didn't hear the same thing, we didn't even use it
Yep.
because it's so interesting how you can put some headphones on and pass it around to each person and people will hear something different. So that
Mhm.
was always my pet peeve when people would put up EVPs and you would hear and it would be like, "Oh, I'm going to kill you." And I'm like,
Yeah.
"Seriously, like why are we doing
Yeah.
this?" Again,
Mhm.
it just puts such a bad light on what I think could be great technology, you know?
And why do we always go to the negative? The paranormal
Right,
right? It's
right.
always like I heard I'm gonna literally it is. I heard kill you. I heard demon. I've heard this. I heard, and
Demons, always, yeah.
it's like okay, and I there was a couple times that I played some stuff and I had an idea of what I thought it was, and it wasn't I'm gonna kill you. It was like, love and light or some it was positive. And it's like, where did you get that from? I mean, it's just and we're like programmed because of the way that the paranormal is kind of treated in a lot of media to think that it's bad. I have a lot of people who reach out to me and they're like, "Ooh, it must be very scary." And it's like, well, no, it's actually beautiful. Why do you think it's scary?
Right.
Oh, because I
Right.
watch the shows. Oh, well,
Yeah.
that's your
Yeah.
problem.
Well, I mean, and I've said this for a long time, but it's also our human nature to fear what we don't understand.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's like once we are more educated and we understand, because a lot of people, they look
Mhm.
at television, and they're like, oh, I want to be an investigator. This, I'm going to have things trying to throw me across the thing or grab me or scratch me, and they're looking for all of that. And then they actually get out there and they will realize that you might be sitting in an attic or a room for 8 hours and get absolutely nothing.
Mhm.
And it's not as glorified as people make it. And again, it is, I feel like now it's like we've got like all these different categories, because I feel like now being an investigator is one thing, but now I feel like you've got, the whole paranormal creator side,
Yeah.
so,
Yeah.
influencer side. And it's not a lot of, I mean, it is some investigating, but it's not like live streaming. It's very edited. I've never seen more paranormal investigators yelling and screaming and running from every little thing that happens. I mean, because for most seasoned investigators, if we hear something or somebody else is scared, that's exactly where we want to go to see what's
Yeah.
going on,
Yeah.
and so to see all these so-called, great investigators running around screaming like a bunch of little girls, so scared, it it just makes me sad. I have, for 20 years, I've hoped
Mhm.
that this field would come around, but it just seems to keep going darker and darker.
No, and I do think too that I think people equate, especially those who are like running certain events, because I've heard about certain things that just literally made my eyes roll out of my head, and that I think some people equate like they like it's almost like wrestling in a way where there's a storyline between investigators and perceived spirits, like oh, I'm back here again and it's unfinished business, and
Yeah.
they've been waiting for me, and and there was one I heard somebody had an event, and I had somebody who was there, and the two of the people who were running the event, they were attacked, and one of their lackeys was also attacked, and I feel like that they use that as, because they don't like what we do, they don't like the fact that we're very powerful, that we're really good investigators, they're out to get us. Meanwhile, everybody else who is attending this, and including what I heard, the owner, it's just like, what the hell are these people doing? This They're
Right.
the only ones that they're rolling on the ground. One had to be, walked out, like lifted up and walked out, and he's like 400 pounds. And it's just like, come on, this. Let's not make this a spectacle. You might as well be wearing your
Right.
sequence cape and the sequence mask and everything else, because that's not what this is about. And I remember one of my first earliest investigations where I went out and I joined in with another team, because I've always been virtually my own team. I'm not part of a team. I don't play well with others, and that's just kind of how I am. And I'm out there with another team, and we're just like doing a spirit box session at an old hospital, and I'm just always asking the questions like, is there somebody here, blah blah blah. And this guy next to me, he's just like starts kind of yelling. He's like, do you want to talk to me? Do you want to talk to me? And I looked at him and I said, no one wants to talk to you. I mean, why would they? Why would anyone? I mean, when you come in like that, and that's when I kind of coined my own phrase of, this isn't our story, this is their story. I'm so tired of, and that's from the investigator point of view, because I had seen so many, and I'm sure you have too, so many investigators that turn this into something about them. Like they need the props, they need the acclamation, they need the constant petting of like, oh yeah, you're really good at what you do, you're a force to be reckoned with in this field. And that's something that I just get. That's why I've kind of drawn back over the last 2 years, because it's like, like you're alluding to, it's gone crazy. It's gone wild. It's almost everybody I see is doing the similar sort of thing.
Right. And the egos are just out of control. You know,
Yeah.
everybody thinks they're better than everybody else. If I hear one more person say that they are an expert in this field, I'm going to go off again because it's
Yeah.
ridiculous.
Yeah.
And again, and a lot of these people are very new to the field. They
Yeah.
only maybe have a few years under their belt, even investigating. So I feel like the, look, I'm 56 years old and I've been having experience since I was 4 years old, and I still feel like I don't have it all figured out. Right.
Yeah.
So, how in the world, in a couple of years of investigating and doing TikToks or YouTube, are you now considering yourself an expert? And I'm loving that because the chat there, they're
Yeah.
saying Jonathan saying the same thing. There are no experts, and
No.
I love that because I'm seeing that word thrown out more and more, especially certain people on radio shows that
Hmm.
are having guests. They, when they send in their bio, when people send me their bio and say they're an expert in anything, that's the one thing I omit
Me
when
too.
I'm going through it. I don't like that because, again, I bet you, I could bring any so-called expert onto this show and we could ask that person questions and they would not be able to give us an answer for those questions.
Yeah.
So, in my mind, if you're an expert, you should be able to answer anything and tell us what it's all about. So, and if you're that person, I need
Absolutely.
to know you because I want to know the answers.
Right, right, exactly. And I find, and I see it too, and I like for my show as well. Sometimes I'll just be like, you say you're an expert. How so? I'll ask them that because
Right.
like I am I missing something very obvious here? And even when they're like, well, I know the equipment really well, or something silly like that, it's like, that doesn't cut it. That's not
Right.
enough to call yourself
Yeah.
expert. I don't
Right.
really like that. So
Yeah. And I mean, again, that just puts on that everything about whatever you're discussing. And I just don't feel, even with all of the answers that I have obtained over the years
mhm.
investigating, I think that it's been great, but it's also opened the door to so many more questions.
Yeah, yeah.
It's like the more you figure out, the more you realize you don't have anything figured out, and there's so much more.
And I feel like that what we do, and I mean everybody who does this, it's kind of a choose your own adventure. So there's no way that my journey is going to be the same as your journey. Therefore, if I were to say I'm an expert, it's like that's impossible because then I would have to know your journey. I'd have to know every piece of of where you're going, what's going to happen, and that's impossible. You don't know. You don't even know. I don't know for
Right.
myself. This is
And then it
ridiculous.
kind of degrades, puts down anybody else who's been in this field for a long time, putting
Oh yeah.
their time in. So what makes you so much better than me and know so much more than I do? And again, this whole ego thing, it is becoming a huge thing in this field, and there's always been drama in this field. That has
Hmm.
been one thing I think that's been a constant. Um, but the amount of drama has got so much worse, I would say, at least over the last 5 years.
Yeah.
But this social media thing, it's become, I mean, I see people now that, I can remember back in the day, like new investigators, they would go out and they, be in an old attic and they'd be kicking around dust and, taking pictures with a flash and then be like, oh my God, look at all the spirits. And, and then more seasoned investigator would be like, no, that's, those are just dust, or
And,
whatever.
and
But not anymore. Now, you put something out as a you are going to get torn apart as
yeah.
if you should have
Yeah.
known what it is. Like, how dare you put something out and try to scam people? But it's a lot of people just don't know what the heck they're doing.
No. No, they don't. They don't. And it's just but yet, some, and I have to be very careful, not all. I mean, obviously, but
Right. Oh yeah.
some to your point though is like they go on a couple investigations or they go on an investigation with someone who is, more famous because it's the same, 7 people at all the paracons.
Right.
And good for them to be able to make it work. But it is a fact. And so when I see a Paracon that has people I've never even heard of before, I'm like, ooh, that's really
Right.
it's
Right.
rare. But
Right.
as soon as they do that, I've seen this firsthand, that people create a fan page for themselves.
Yes.
And it's like,
Yes.
oh my god. Now, you could also say, I have my Ghost Box Radio page that has my name on it. It's like, yeah,
Right.
but that's for the show, specifically
Right.
for the show. But, I can understand that people are going to see that and they're like, well, Greg, you're doing exactly what you don't, you say that you don't like. But the difference for me is my radio show is literally my little slice, my corner of paranormal. And, I don't go to the cons and promote it, because my audience are going to be the ones who are on the peripheral of the paranormal fan base. They're not
Right.
going to be always going to the big conventions and stuff, where it seems like it's the same people at the same conventions with the same people going to those conventions. And I'm glad you enjoy it. I'm glad you love it. But it feels like that sometimes, that in my mind, in my personal opinion, you're losing track of what, well, I guess what I think paranormal is. And I guess that's like, well, that doesn't mean that I'm right. But I mean, to me, paranormal is about like going to places and helping people, but that's not
Right.
how everyone sees it. So there you go.
Mm-mm. And what I found at the events too is just exactly what you said was, you see the same people every year are invited back to the same events. And unfortunately, there, and I'll just say it, this is how I am, but there are a lot of ass kissers out there because they want to be
Yeah.
invited to these events every
Yeah.
year. And I don't really fit into that genre. So I can like piss people off because I'm just very real and I just say it how it is. So, my whole point of doing my show was because first of all, there really wasn't a whole lot of paranormal. I saw more people, drinking, hooking up, cheating on their
Yeah.
significant
Yeah.
others, like all of that. And it was like you were expected to just see it, but don't say anything about it, and I'm just that's not what I thought these events were supposed to be. Plus, the same people have the exact same lecture every year.
Yep.
And what I
Yep.
also found is every single year, all of these events become more expensive and more expensive every year.
Yep.
So, like, there was one recently. Now, again, the lineup of people was okay. I knew some of the people. That's great in a great location, but the tickets were like $3.95 a piece.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm sorry, first, I am not paying that much to investigate anywhere. Like there
Hmm.
is activity everywhere. So you know what I'm saying? I'm not paying 395 to go and investigate. Plus, I also find that when you go to these events, it's a lot of people. There's a lot of contamination. So your evidence is always questionable. It I find that they're also very disorganized. I see a lot of people who are actively drinking and things before they go to investigate. And I had a bad
Hmm.
experience. I am guilty of it. I didn't go purposely to go and investigate. I went to go celebrate my birthday and I was drinking, and my friend who owns a haunted bar said, "Hey, you want to go over there for the first time?" And of course, drunk Christina was like, "Oh, sure, sounds like fun." Bad mistake. Bad
Yeah.
mistake.
Yeah.
But you see these things happen, and so I think that a lot of people now, between the price of the tickets, they're really not seeing anybody new or any new topics. I mean, you're expecting to go and see like all the new evidence of the year, all the new
Yeah.
technology that people created, like something that's going to make you want to go. Otherwise, it's just a social event. And if that's okay, if that's the case, then we can just do a meetup and it'll be cheap. We can all just meet up there and hang out and have a good time. Like we don't have to call it a paranormal event because I just don't see that kind of stuff happening.
No. Well, I think the funny part about that, because I've talked about this with other people too, because it's a point worth reminding people, is that when because a lot of people are like, yeah, I'm gonna go see my friend so and so from a show, so and so this from the show, whatever else, and like, well, okay, well, if that's the case, though, would they come out and see you if they weren't getting paid?
Right.
And
Right. Do they
that's not.
talk to you online? Like, do you have like I mean, that's the thing too, is all these people got these big egos, and if you have a TV show or any of these networks, the one thing that you see is they have like their fan page, and then they've got all these mods that are replying to everybody for them. Like there is no like personal connection. Like people are so taken back when I respond to them personally. Or
Mhm.
if they send me a message and I respond to their message, I'm like, oh my God, I didn't expect that you were going to get back to me.
Yeah.
Like that's sad. That's sad.
Yeah. Well, and I mean,
Um,
that's just that. I mean, that's just it too. We had an event where we brought in a pretty good name for our event, and I had no preconceived notion that just because I invited this person that we are going to be friends from now on. It was a business arrangement. And he every time I've talked to him, he's been very nice to me, very good to me. But it's also like, I'm not because we had that one event, I'm not going to be like, so how are you today? Sending him notes every night,
right.
just checking in, say, hey, if we need to if hopefully we can work together again, I'll reach out and we'll start it up. I just don't want to be a nuisance because there
Right.
are a lot of people who think that they had this great experience that we're friends now, and that's I really find that that's probably more often than not true.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. A lot. And again, most of these people, they don't really care. They care about the numbers, they care about the following, and they want people to go
Yep,
and look at what they're doing. That's really the bottom
yep.
line. It's not like you're my friend, come and check out what I'm doing. It's just come on out there. Brian is saying at conventions, I found a lot of people saying that if you aren't on TV, then you don't know what you're doing. Sad. Yeah, it
Here,
is sad. And
here
that is
here's
true.
a here's an interesting thing about this. This is my opinion. So we have those Panasonic DR60s that everyone thinks it's the greatest recording device ever created by humans, and that this is the end all be all. I have heard in with my own ears on a couple occasions, including with investigations with certain celebrities and stuff. When they use the DR60, they'll play it back, and there's something screaming into the mic, and they're just like, my gosh, this is they not happy we're here, even at the nicest place in the world, they're not happy that we're here, and everyone's like, oh my god, and it still screams every time they do it. I believe it's a fault in
Yeah, I was
the
gonna say that's
DR60 because the DR60 is so old now that they're
right.
probably these things are probably not playing as well. I've heard it from two different people, and I gave my theory to somebody else who said he's heard it for a non-paranormal stuff that someone was using a DR60 and
Oh,
got the same thing that happened. I'm not saying all DR60s are that way, but when these people are using that as fodder of like, oh my gosh, they are really angry we're here, they have something to say to me, and it's like, but no, this is actually a technological misstep with the machine. Try something else. That
right.
and they, no one wants to hear that. No one wants that perception broken. um which I think is really a shame. And I guess I would, but the long story that I'm trying to tell here is with Brian's comment is like, yeah, if I were to have that, someone would be like, well, I think there's a fault with it. Someone else who's been on TV that used it, oh my gosh, they just know what they're doing. They're getting screaming, they're getting all sorts of ridiculous
Yes.
activity. God bless them, and it's just like amazing.
What's your thoughts on the Estes method? Because that has become very, very popular all of a sudden. I mean, it's been around for quite a while, but I'm really seeing a lot of people like on social media and the different platforms using this. And I'll give you my opinion after, but I want to kind of see what your thoughts are on it.
All right, so this is tough because I once in a while I guest on a friend's show, Greg Koss. He does every Wednesday. He does the Estes method, and I partake in it with him. Generally speaking, though, I think it's a couple things. I think it's dangerous. It's potentially dangerous, but I also think it's potentially open to hoax. It is not my favorite thing. Matter of fact, it's probably one of my least favorite things. I did it with friends at the Beatty Mansion in Kansas, or was Missouri, and that ended not great. Even though that wasn't hoaxing, that was just it got away from the person who had the blindfold on. I think that it's one of those things that people they kind of run with it. And I, especially if you're doing it at an event, you could have the whole night using spirit box, and all you're just getting is like responses or bloops and stuff, maybe even nothing at all. And as soon as
Right.
somebody puts on the headset and the eye thing,
Bang.
next thing you know,
Everything.
it's swearing at them. It's, Satan is coming through. It's all this stuff. And it's like, oh yeah, okay, sure. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. But yet people are freaked out over it. There's somebody I know, and they put themselves in a trance, and it's just like, enough. All right, enough. I'm just so tired of, oh, so if I feel bad because I don't feel like I'm a very positive human being tonight. But the thing is, it's like,
Welcome to my show. We just talk about controversial topics. That's it.
it's always a matter of one-upmanship. That's what
Right.
this field has always become. Like, there's certain people who'd be like someone would ask me, have you been to Velisca? Yeah, I've been there a couple times. Well, I've been there 5. Well, good
Right.
for you. I mean,
And I got this kind of evidence. And did you get that? What
right.
kind of evidence did you get? Yeah. No,
Yeah,
I
every
get it.
time. Every time. And it's just like, it just, or they want to tell me all the scary stuff. Now, obviously, some of the stuff I actually sent you tonight is from Velisca, and it is kind of scary because I think it plays well. But it's also, I'm not going up to people and be like, how many times have you been there? Did you get this? Did you get that? Some of the stuff I actually hadn't like played in presentations for a while because it's like, that just seems a little dark now. It just seems like unnecessarily dark, like I'm playing into it. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, I actually came across a team, and I investigated with them, and I actually kind of left mid investigation because I was really perturbed because they were doing the Estes method. Now,
Mhm.
again, I've investigated a lot of times where teams, want to do it. And I've had teams that, they'll have somebody, we put the person with the headphones in a completely different room, super far away, and again, we get, like you said, it's like a light switch flips and they're just spitting out all this stuff sometimes, and we're not even asking questions, but they're
Yeah.
just shooting out the answers. And anything that comes out, everybody's like, oh yeah, well that makes sense, or this does, or whatever. But I also was with this team, and so they had the noise canceling headphones, they said, had them on,
Mhm.
had the white noise going, and then the group was like right next to them,
Yeah.
and they're asking the questions, and it was like on cue, this person was answering, they ask a question, oh, here's the answer that answers it, oh, ask another question. And you know again, I'm just one of those blunt people, and I'm like, okay, hold on a second, because something just doesn't seem right here. And I'm like, I'm
Mhm.
pretty sure she can hear.
Yeah.
And they're like, no, 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 she can't hear. And so she was like, no, I can't hear. And I said, let me see, let me use them. And they're like, oh, well, she's always the one that always does it because she kind of like can get in a trance to connect. And I'm like, I'm a psychic medium as well. So let me try. I put them on 100%. I could hear every single thing they said, even when they put me further away from them.
Yeah. Yeah.
So when I see things like that, and it's hard then to take that technology serious, even if it can
Yeah.
be great technology.
Yep.
It's like that's the bad thing about it. Like I think that we come out with all kinds of tools that could be very helpful, but there's so many people that then use it to scam people, that then people are like, yeah, I don't know about all that.
It seems like there's a lot of broken personalities in this field, and I'm not saying I'm not one of them. Don't get me wrong, but the idea of like they need something to put themselves above other people, or at least to be noticed. And in that, when you're getting to that point, it's really sad. I did an event with somebody at Holton, Kansas, at a mortuary over Halloween over a year ago. And there's this guy. We broke up into groups, and I was in the back room with about 7 people, and we were doing kind of a weird sort of version of Estes. And some guy's just like, oh my gosh, I just been scratched. And like, all right, turn on the light. And I go over, and I'm like, no, you haven't been scratched. I don't see anything. Oh, okay. And then turn off the light. We start up again. Same guy. Oh, I've been scratched. And I go over, and sure enough, back of his neck. He had 3 scratches going across his neck, and I'm just like, all right. And his girlfriend's like, that's the sign of the devil. I'm like, just relax. And people are like going, oh my gosh. I'm like, all right, we're gonna go in the other room now. Everyone, it's okay. And they're going, and he starts walking. I grab him, I pull him back, and I'm like, can I see your fingernails, please? And he's like, oh, what? I'm like, can I just see your fingernails, please? And he puts them up, and there's skin in his fingernails. And and he faked it. And I said to him, I think you should leave, otherwise I'm going to expose you. And he laughed, and I still exposed him. So, well, it's
That's
just
right.
like it's just ridiculous. I mean, like, and I hate to say this, this is really horrible, but you could see when he walked in what you're going to get. You know, you could see that type of investigator. You know those type of people, and you could see as
Oh,
soon as he
I
walked in,
do.
it's like, well, I think he's going to want to. I think he's going to do things a little bit different than what we did, and he sure did. So,
Yeah, it's sad. I mean, it's been around for a long time. The very first paranormal team I worked with, the team leader, like he every investigation after he had done about five, he would just go on social media and say he didn't have like per se team. He just said, "Hey, we're going to do an investigation. Anybody who wants to come on." So we might have a 1 bedroom apartment with 30 people. We might have a 6 bedroom house with 2 people. It
yeah.
was, you never knew. But every time he did like 5 or 6, and we literally investigated every single weekend. It was because that was like right at the beginning of when everybody was interested. Um, so and the fact it was open to the public, which looking back was how stupid as well. But he considered himself the demon warrior. So every
Of
time he
course.
had like 5 or 6 investigations, he'd write a book and he would put those investigations. But the investigations were never how the investigations were because I'm like, I was there. This wasn't what happened. And he was writing as if it was correct. And he wanted to get on TV so bad. And so he tried to get me and who is now my co-founder of my group, um, who's a psychic. We were the lead psychics for his group. And he tried to get us to lie on
Mm,
film,
yeah.
and we weren't having it. And it's crazy again what people will do. Jonathan is wanting to know, what is your take on psychic mediums?
Well, I mean, I'm all about them. And kind of what you had said earlier, Christina, is very much kind of, I mean, what I walked into when I started as well, where I remember because like I said, I've done a lot of this stuff by myself, but I've always, been lucky enough to have like partnered with a psychic medium. And early on, I partnered with this person named Nicole, and we were good friends, and we investigated, and her abilities were growing, and it was very fun to see. She was 100% legit. And went into at a Paracon in Minnesota. We go into, and this is where egos are made. Is they went into one of the grand halls, and there is a local team there talking, and they're holding court, right? They're holding court, like they're the end all, the bee's knees of paranormal. And so someone asked that question to them, like, what do you think of psychic mediums? And one was just like, oh, they're fine. I mean, if there's like something like weird happening in a corner, we might ask them, like, did you pick up anything? But and I was just horrified. Nicole was deeply offended and upset because we actually know these people. They're not like I've
Ooh.
just seen them. Like, it's like, these people. We're out hanging out and stuff. And uh it's one of those things that is just bad. And to your point, though, you have to, and I think there's a, like, the more you do this, the more the meter comes out of like who's legit and who's not, or who is legit but they're not, they have abilities that they need to grow, and there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, as long as they understand that for themselves, that there's areas, like I said, I use mediumship for my spirit box stuff, but I really shy away from using the word medium, because to me that's something different. But I am also aware that I'm using gifts that I have,
That's
and
right.
augmenting it with the equipment, and
Mhm.
I love that, and it's taken me a long time to come to that sort of agreement and arrangement with the universe. But it is something that, I know so many good ones. I partner with a fantastically gifted woman named Shar. We do classes, we do events, we do all sorts of wonderful things together, that as business. And she's somebody else that I have seen for the last 10, 12 years, whatever it is, go from not thinking that they have gifts to being incredibly gifted, but
Right.
no ego, and that's what. And I know I sound like a broken record about the ego part, but when you're in the positions that you and I are in, when we do meet a lot of people, it wears down, because all we want to do is enjoy this field, learn from it, maybe contribute to it in some way. But when you're running into the clones of everyone kind of having the same story, and everyone is like, trying to, I was at something in St. Cloud, and one of the other teams came up to me, and they're like, "Oh, I've not heard of you." And I'm like, "That's okay." And they're like, "Yeah,
Right.
we were doing stuff with," and they named off like five different, big names that they do stuff with. And I'm like,
And I hate the name dropping all the
I do
time.
too. Like, there isn't anything I mean, good for you if that's what you want to do. It's not my
Right.
thing, but I'm not impressed. I didn't say that because it's just like, I don't want to start something at a,
Right.
Paracon, but it's just like, come on.
It's just like they're just regular people like you and I. They've just been on TV, and I mean, again, just because they're out there, it doesn't always even mean they're that great of investigators. Because again, I have seen more on networks and different places where, like I said, people are running, screaming all kinds of things, and it's like, wow, this is who you're looking up to. Like, this is crazy to me. All of this is very crazy to me. James said, on a positive note, we've met and bonded with some of the nicest, sweetest, and most honest and real people at events during and during investigations. And I will
Mhm.
say that I have,
Yeah.
I have too. And I will tell you, a lot of the people that attend these are amazing. They're just there wanting to soak up information. And so it's great. You get the people that, yeah, definitely show up for all the big names. But again, I think people are getting away from that too, because it's like you're charging these exorbitant amounts, and they've already seen these people all around the country.
Yeah.
Because it's like
Well,
a big
and
thing of just all the good people.
I stack the deck, and I know James, and he's been to. I mean, I know he's been to other events. I'm not saying it's because he's been to our events. I mean, he's been to a few of our events, and they've come up to our table and said hi and stuff. And there's some really good teams in Minnesota that are great. But I stack the deck in the sense that if I want to have a good uh, if I want to take part in a good event, I will make it myself, because that way I know that it's how I want it to be. Or I
Right.
partner with Shar and we do it. We want to. There's a couple that were coming up this year, and that we have a very strong philosophy on how the events should go, how the investigation should go, and if cross a line of disrespect, then that's a problem. And
Mhm.
that we try to make them affordable as well, but we also try to find new places. So
Right.
yeah, I totally get it, and I appreciate the positive note, because but it's just tough when you're seeing online, and especially
Yeah.
once again, because of like doing the show and stuff. I see a lot on Facebook, and I
Right.
see the troubling, the trend that really covers the country. So that's where I'm coming from. And it doesn't help either that I'm doing a radio show on an AM station, and I'm doing it in the birthplace of darkness radio. Dave Schrader and Tim Dennis, everyone, thinks that this is a wannabe of darkness. Like, we're trying to be a wannabe of darkness. In fact, we tried to bring on a sponsor, and we got this woman on, and she's known in the community, and we brought her on to talk to her about sponsoring my show, and she just was like, oh yeah, paranormal show in Minnesota. I'm like, yeah. She goes, you know what you should do? I'm like, what's that? You should talk to Dave Schrader about hosting it. And I'm like, but I'm the host,
Right.
it's
Right.
me, my show.
Right.
But that's the thing, and that's what you kind of run up against, and it's like it's not my stuff is nowhere near the level of what their stuff is or was and going to be. But like I've said earlier, it's my slice of the paranormal.
I love it because I can get the information out. I can get the stories out that I want. I can pick and choose what I do. And again, so many listeners are looking for shows like yours and I that,
Mhm.
that talking about all kinds of different things, giving our perspective. My biggest thing is, in this field, agreeing to be able to, agree to disagree. And
Yeah.
unfortunately, in this field, that is not something that I have seen as possible. Everybody thinks everybody's a right fighter. Everybody thinks, that their opinion is the only opinion that matters. But again, we've seen it in politics, we see it in the paranormal, I see it in the ufology field, I see it in the crypto field, I see it everywhere, and I guess that's the sad part is that, you know, this is the direction our field is going. I have been waiting for 20 years, having hope that, maybe that when new investigators or that when people were more seasoned or, whatever things would change. And sadly, that just doesn't seem. Are there great people in this field? 100%. I
Hmm.
have had the
Hmm.
pleasure of meeting all kinds of people and all kinds of teams and things like that. Great people. Um, but I have learned also to keep my circles very small. I
Oh
have
yeah.
lots of
Yeah.
acquaintances, but I don't get too involved with too many people because that's just like, a suicide mission in this field because it's the first thing that you say that they don't agree with, they're then coming after you. And
Yeah.
it's always been hard. I mean, I say if people can make it in this field, especially right now, and make it through at least the first 5 years, there's a good chance that they're gonna stick it out and they're gonna be around for a while. I see
Well, and
so many people that get in the field and then like within the first year, they can't handle the
no,
attacks. They
no.
can't handle the backstabbing. They can't handle all the gossip. And they're just like, this is too much. I'm not doing this. So
Well, and we talked about it before the show. The term para-unity. And I find, and I do believe there are people who believe it. But
yeah,
to me, it's no different than going, like, I'm single, so I'm going on a dating site and seeing someone says, I want to be drama free. If you're saying anything about drama in it, that means you are drama. So if you're just like, I don't want drama in the paranormal, well, I wonder about that.
yeah,
Have I caused drama in the paranormal before? Yeah, I have. I mean, it just, I'm
me
a human
too.
being, and
Right.
so I don't want to come across like, I wish everyone was as good as a human being as I am,
No, no,
because I'm
no.
I'm I'm a piece of crap a lot of times. I mean, there's been times that I've been, and I look back and I'm like, what have I done? So I get it, but it's also to your point about sustainability, about staying in the field, what makes you want to stay in the field, and that's why our circles are smaller, because it's like we can still exist. We don't have to be friends with everyone on the planet Earth who's ever, thought they've
Right.
heard of a ghost, and still be able to function and have a great experience.
Right. I also see a lot of people in this field now, now consider anybody that follows them a fan
Oh yeah.
opposed to just, and I'm like, oh, okay. Or, people say, oh my gosh, you're at 5,000 at the max on Facebook. I've been at the max, I think, probably the last 10 years. So what does that
Mhm.
mean? Like,
Yeah.
there's probably such a small percentage that actually, probably a good portion of people who are actually on my friends list are probably haters of mine because they don't like somebody I've exposed or something I've done. So, I I don't care, but they're like, oh my God, you have so many fans. I will never say I have fans.
No,
That's not even my vocabulary. I don't understand
no,
that.
I hate that. And like for example, James supports what I do. He will reshare stuff. He will he comes up and says hi to me all the time, but that's because we're friends.
Right,
We became
right.
friends through this.
Through time, right.
People like to think that when you get to a certain level that there are people below you, and it's just like no, 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 no. And I would hate to think that if I ever called anyone a fan, I would be very upset with myself, because I think we have people who are interested in what I do, but
Right,
they're mainly friends. If I meet you face to face and we have a conversation, whatever, you're a friend. You're
right.
not a fan or a follower or whatever else that is. I just it just I just
Just
don't
someone who's
like the
interested
ego.
in what you do. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I will say I've built a lot of friendships online. Like I'll go to an event, people will travel, show up there, or if they're from that town. And so there are people that, and then who have been listening to the show for the last 10 to 15 years.
Hmm.
They are loyal fans that have been there, of the show for a long time. But are they a fan of mine? No, they're a fan of like the show of what I do.
Hmm.
They have an interest
Hmm.
in what I do. I tell you, I am not anybody. I can go and walk out into a middle of hundreds of people, and nobody's going to say, "Oh, it's Christina George. Oh, you're from Paranormal Connections."
Yeah.
If you follow the show, then you will know who I am. But everybody thinking, they got a little following, so they're now this, the next superstar is definitely interesting.
Oh yeah. Well, and I've often joked too. Like I've had some people from, to be honest, ghost hunters who I've known, not on a great level, but I've known, and asked them to be on my show because they had a new book or something, and they're just like, well, how big is your audience? How big is that?
Yes,
And I thought to myself, I wanted to respond to them like, I guarantee you, if I what took your picture down to downtown Minneapolis and just on the street, stop people and ask, "Do you know who this person is?" We're not going to get more than 20 people out of 100 that are going to be like, "Oh yeah, I know who that is." So, maybe settle down a little bit. I mean, that's
right.
a little bit of a reality check.
Well, you know, I so first of all, Greg has some great audio that we wanted to play, but for some reason my computer will not let me play it correctly. So I keep trying in the background. So what I'm going to do is on the event page, you guys will be able to go on there. I will upload all of them. So please go and listen, because for people who are interested in this kind of technology, um, again, my thing is when the information is coming out, does it really sound like what people are saying it does? And
Yeah.
and I went over all of Greg's audio, and um, it, it's very interesting to say the least. So, hold on.
If
Oh, hey
it,
Bridget, she says he's from. Is he from my state of Minnesota?
That's where I am right now. I'm in St. Michael,
That's it.
Minnesota.
There
So
you
you
go,
can tell by
Bridget.
the accent, the Minnesota. I'm from Minnesota. If you wanted, I could play a couple. If you let me share, I could play a couple.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you wanted to.
Let's
You
see.
can
Let's
absolutely.
see.
Yeah.
Look at all the ones with all the big swear words and stuff in there.
Okay.
Um, let's see here. I'm just trying to think what'd be a good one to play. I don't know how late you want to go till, so I don't want to like.
I,
But
we've got
I'm
time.
I'm here for as long as you can put up with me, or as long as the audience
We're
can.
good. We're
I
good.
am
Yeah.
I am I don't really talk about this stuff that much, to be honest, like the side that we're talking about, but it is worth talking about, I think. Um,
I I do too. And then I think that's kind of what also puts my show. I talk about things that a lot of people aren't comfortable talking about, or discussing certain topics because they don't want to offend people or whatever. But this is what our
mhm.
field is. And
Yeah,
unfortunately, yes, there are good sides to it, but unfortunately, there's a lot of downside. And again, unfortunately, over time, it's not getting better. It's getting worse. So,
and
I
and
think that it is something to talk about.
and I agree, and I do I keep going back to James, note, about on a positive note. And I do wanted to say, for example, James is someone I had not known that long. I think I've known him for just really really for about a year or so. So you're absolutely right. There are great people that you meet, and there's so many more. And then we do our class, and we have so many wonderful people that have come through there and done
Hmm.
their own thing. And we do try to do the best job we can on there. I want to start with one of my favorites. Okay. And I don't know how we want to do this, but I want to kind of give an example of how Bridget's and Big Lake. You don't know this,
Yes.
Christina, but St. Michael and Big Lake are probably about maybe 20 minutes apart.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
That's
yeah.
funny.
Bridget, I've known Bridget for a very long
Yeah.
time. So
Yeah.
yeah.
She's very close. We're on the northwest side of the Twin Cities, and so the first thing I want to play is, like we talked about earlier. I believe I can, bring through, and I always say there's no guarantee, but I bring through a voice of of somebody. If I really want someone in particular, if they want to talk, I think I can bring them through. So there was a documentary on Discovery Plus, and I think it's still there. It's something like The Last Photo of Lincoln or something like that. And what it is, and I'm kind of obsessed with Lincoln a little bit. Everything about what led up to his assassination, and this there are, I think, 132 or 33 known photos of President Lincoln, but someone had this picture of him that they say it's him on the deathbed at the place that they took him to from the Ford's Theater across the street. And this is after he died, and his dead body in bed, and it's hotly contested. It's absolutely hotly contested. And so um I thought, well, maybe I could just ask him if this is him or not. So I before even going live, because I did this live on Facebook during my one of my ghost box sessions. I just had my flashlight and myself, and I just said, President Lincoln, and it went through the whole thing of respect and whatever. And I said, if I show you a picture on screen here, would you let me know if that is you or not? And the flashlight turns on, and then it turns off. I'm like, thank you, President Lincoln. I really appreciate it. Trying to kind of, keep my emotions in check here. And then I said, may I also have permission to ask Mrs. Lincoln a question? And the flashlight turns on and it turns off. And I'm like, well, this is pretty cool. So we start the show, and I have the spirit box going, and I have a lot of people watching. And I said, Mr. Lincoln, and the photo comes up. I said, is this you? And the response to the spirit box is this voice that says, yes, it is. And the chats start going crazy. People are just like, my God, he can't. And I start getting starstruck. And I'm just like, well, I do want to ask Mary Todd Lincoln a question. So I said, the question I was going to ask her was, Mrs. Lincoln, when you were living, you spoke to the dead. Now that you are dead, do you speak to the living? But I was so kind of like flustered by everything. It came out really wrong. Like, it was long-winded. It wasn't like embarrassing, just long-winded. And I believe that I got this exasperated woman responding to me. So I'm gonna start with that one. Here we go.
Okay.
Lincoln, you spent your entire life reaching out to spirits. Do you talk to other people? Do you talk to other people as a spirit, to other living people? Talk about what?
So, one of the things I believe that's her. Can I prove it? No, I can't. There
Right.
are, there's no way to prove any of this. But that's what we call, obviously, an intelligent response. That's where we get someone responding, and I believe that that is a very clear response. Obviously, when it was live, we didn't have the words underneath, and people are like, oh my gosh, they're responding like they couldn't believe what they heard. It's a full sentence. It was just really pretty, for me, it was pretty magical. I love that response quite a bit. um, and there is just this wonderful idea of like this is history. And I had somebody in the chat saying, well, can we play like Lincoln like against his like recorded voices? Like, no, there's no recordings of Lincoln. That's a little bit
Right.
later. But it was really pretty cool. There's one other voice in there that uh, is what we heard for the Lincoln voice originally, like that I didn't play with him saying yes it is, and that is Mrs. Lincoln. When you were living, you spoke to the dead, and I think it's around there that you hear a man say, "I know," and that's what we have. That's who we believe is Lincoln. May I play that again?
Absolutely.
Okay, here we go.
Mrs. Lincoln, you spent your entire life reaching out to spirits. Do you talk to other people? Do you talk to other people as a spirit, to other living people?
Talk about
what?
So, and then she actually says something beforehand. It's kind of like she starts the voice that voice starts to come through, but it doesn't. It's very interesting. And one of the things, people may agree or disagree with what I say it is, but the thing is, I've been around so many people who are famous for talking on spirit boxes, and all they do is like they'll have it close to their ear and they'll be like, "How are you today?" "Oh, you're doing good." "Oh, okay. Yep. Nope. Oh, yeah. No. Yeah." It's like, this really talkative
Right.
today. No one else can hear.
Right.
If you can't hear what I'm doing, then I shouldn't be doing it at all. That's my take on it. It's simple
No,
as that.
I agree with that too. Let's see. Let me go over to Instagram real quick because I saw a couple of questions over there.
Questions like, why is he on your show? No, just kidding.
No. Oh.
Who is this weirdo?
was wanting to know, since you're talking about your radio show, what is your radio show's name and where can she find it?
Well, thank you for asking. The show is called Ghost Box Radio. It's if you're local to the Twin Cities, it airs on KTNF AM 950 every Monday through Friday at 10:05 p.m. Central Standard Time. We stream it, and we also do a live Facebook stream of the show. And you can find that on my Facebook page, Ghost Box Radio with Greg Bakum. It's a Facebook page that please consider liking, just because I am proud of the show. Just like we put a lot into our shows, don't we? I mean,
Right.
I've seeing the prep that leading up to me being on here tonight, seeing what you do, seeing what I'm doing, and just like it never seems to end. But I love it so much.
Yeah.
And it's fun. It's really, and the show is basically, I sit there when I'll sit here at home and I'll be like, what do I want to talk about? What do I want to find out about? What do I want to learn about? And then I'll see who can come on and talk about it.
Yeah,
And it's
that's what I
fun.
do too. I agree. And sometimes I love some of the craziest experiences, and encounters. I love hearing about that stuff because it's like I I can connect with those because some of my encounters have been just completely out of this world, and when people hear about them, they're kind of like, "Are those
Yeah.
real?" It sounds kind of great, but that is my life, and that is how things are. And so I think being able to have our shows talk about what we want, and then there's people again that follow us that say, I like that topic, or I may not like the topic this week, I'll catch it next week, but hey, oh, this week, oh yeah, I want to hear about this. So yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely. And
Well,
I have
fun.
people. I was just gonna say I have people who sometimes will drop out for a couple nights because the content is a little dark, and that is
Right.
not a problem. That's
Yeah.
but that's always this kind of reminder for me too. Is like, maybe we should lighten up a little bit. I'm a student of demonology. I'm not a demonologist, but I'm a study on it.
Gotcha.
And so it's one of my favorite things to talk about. I'm fascinated beyond belief by it. So we do have a fair share of demonologists or case studies and stuff. And sometimes it's like, oh, that's right. Like I have Adam, he runs the board for me Thursday and Fridays. I do, most of the time I do it by myself, but he'll come in and help take calls and stuff. And he's just like, sometimes after the end of the show, he's like, oh, I'm so glad this was so much more lighter than what you've been talking about, because it does get dark. And I don't know about you, but I get desensitized to it. I don't go away being like, oh yeah, it's been really dark. I'm just like, okay, now let's talk about this demonic case. I mean, it's just
Right.
what it
I
is.
mean, well, if you're interested in that, I mean, for me, it's like possessions and, demonology, any of these things, because I just find it very fascinating. And although, and the big debate, on demons and everything, because again, in the field, have I encountered some really dark things? 100%. Or some of those dark things, human spirits? 100%. Nothing demonic about them. They were just really shitty people and living, and when they died, they were still really, they didn't cross over and were still pretty crappy people then. So do I believe that, there's possession and there's demonic attachments and stuff? I absolutely do. I just have not seen any proof or had any personal experience myself. So I love to hear, people's stories and encounters, because I want to know. I want to know. I want to have a better idea before I really have a full-fledged opinion on something. Because just because one person hasn't experienced it does not mean that the situation couldn't, does not exist. So I'm with you. I do seem, a lot of mine do seem to be a little darker, even, abductions, different things like that. But it is what it is. I mean, I just feel like some of these topics really need to be discussed and need to be shared. So
that's exactly it. I think it's, especially for those who, I think of my audience who I feel like I'm taking on a journey in a sense, because they're not deep into the paranormal like some of us are. So it's like some of the stuff, it's like I've had to kind of start out here and kind of move the conversation inward, if you get my drift. But the thing is, it's like, it also shows that, we may know about abductions, we may know about certain visitations, but here's what happened to this person, and here is the aftermath, because I don't think the aftermath is always as discussed, especially in mainstream, than what we would probably want to, unless it's sensationalized. I mean, it's just talking about depression, just talking about that, the fact that people wouldn't believe them, that something like that happened, and thoughts of suicide because they were so depressed afterwards. Those are the things that need to be talked about.
Absolutely. And I love having people like that come on, because again, they may not have friends or family that believe in any of this, right? So that usually is what kind of causes a lot of the depression and the suicidal thoughts, is because they feel so alone. So being able to come on a platform where the listeners are open to this kind of information, and and they can come on and it's a safe place for them to talk about their experiences without getting any ridicule, And so for me, because of the fact that I've gone through it myself, I always said, my whole purpose for the show was to educate and help people. And so as long as I'm able to do that, and I have my guests say, you know what, it was so nice to be able to share, and, people were attacking me, and, you were so kind of listening, and, I love that. I love that, because that means I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. The recognition, all of that, I don't care. Like I said, if I'm able to, when I have to check out of this world, I've helped at least one person, which I know I have. It is all worth every bit of work that I put into the show all the time. So
absolutely, and that also goes to say too. I've talked a lot about things I don't like about paranormal, but if you're on my show, that means that you're going to be treated well. There's no ambushing. There's no, I mean, there might be some challenging a little bit, but not like in a horrible way. It might be just, I have a question about what you just said, but I'm not, if you're going to be on my show, I come from a place that I believe what you're saying, that I respect you, and that let's tell your story. It's about you. The hour is about you. I mean, I'll sound check the thing afterwards just to make sure that when I put it up for podcasts that it's all there. And I kind of note, like, when I'm doing the individual drop-ins, like, just to see if the quality is still there. Like, the less I hear of myself when I do those random checks, that means it's a better show, because the more I hear about of my voice, it means that I'm overpowering the show, and it's not about me, it's about my guest.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I just want to take off first and say thank you for being so patient, because I had so much stuff going on between, the holidays, my health, it has just been chaotic.
Yeah.
And, thankfully, having to show yourself and you do it, by yourself, all of how hard it is to try to schedule everything and make everything work all the time. But I'm so glad that you stuck around. You wanted to be on the show still. We rearranged everything and you came on, because I thoroughly enjoyed talking to you for the last hour and a half.
Thank you. I have too, and I appreciate it. And yeah, I mean, that's life is most important, right? I mean, that's what it comes down to. And yeah, I mean, I get it. And last year wasn't a great year for me too, and it was sometimes scary, just downright scary. So yeah, no, I'm with you on that.
Well, I've thoroughly enjoyed having you on the show. And to be honest, I'd love to have you back on where we just do like a whole hour of just going over,
Yeah.
audio clips. I think there's, some amazing ones. And so I think that would be, a great topic. So I'd love to have you back.
Well, and I'd like to get you on mine if you'd like.
Oh,
If you'd like to
anytime.
share your experience, because that's what I'd love to be able to do.
Of course, just let me know. I'm always happy to do that.
Let's do it. Okay, we'll get a time.
All right, James, that's great show, you guys. Take care and be safe. You too.
Thank
Everybody,
you.
thank you so much for joining us. Everybody who's follows me, everybody that follows Greg. Been a great show, and we will have him back really soon, and we'll go over a lot of the audio. Because again, I just find this a very fascinating topic. So with that being said, everybody, make sure to join me next week. Again, got some big announcements coming on. And I have a little bit of a surprise for everybody for next week. So I'm just gonna leave it at that. You're just gonna have to tune in to see what the big surprise is. But believe me, it's gonna be big. I think it's gonna shock a lot of people, but hey, you never know what Christina will do. Things change every week. All right, everybody, you guys have a great week. I will see you next Sunday, same time. Everybody, love ya. Good night.